Connected. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm sorry. Goodness. It just did, my audio just did something stupid and it was like, you don't exist. Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. Does my desktop audio exist? Where's my desktop audio? It's gone. My desktop audio is gone. What do you mean my desktop audio is gone? Are you playing a prank on me? That's not nice of you. How dare you? I'll kill you. Well, that's something to read on later. What about this one? Okay, that one's working. Up. Pretend you didn't see that. Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today we're reading... Well, I don't know what we're reading. I'm kind of running a machine right now while I'm doing this video. We're reading chapters 9 to 11, I know that much. But we're reading like 18 pages, I think? I don't know, let me go find chapter 11, I can tell you. Chapter 11 ends on page 58, so about 17 pages is about right, yeah. But yeah, without further ado, let's begin. I hope you're still recording. Chapter 9. Ben found that he quite enjoyed having the entire fortress all to himself. Well, almost all to himself. He let Johnny out of the hallway enclosure by breaking through a second-story wall, and as soon as Hatchet and Flip had fled, now Johnny had run the fortress too. The zombie boy still wore his lead, but Ben decided not the time to oppose. The place was locked up tight, so Johnny couldn't wander too far. Logan had to empty all of his loot chest before leaving, but the person could carry only so much, and Logan had to be left behind a few more than useful items. Ben found a few armor upgrades, used items that would be able to cobble into better shape at a courtyard anvil, and there were plentiful potions and fresh milk and choice cuts of meat, which he cooked in many furnaces lighting the dining hall. We even found a pristine white bone for Johnny to gnaw on. He didn't care to wonder where the bone had come from. There were a few odd touches, such as a charged creeper head on the trophy room. The courtyard's turtle pen had been emptied of turtles, although some skew had been left behind, and for some reason the pig pen had what looked like some kind of iron fence. Though small oddities aside, the fortress was a tremendous improvement over Ben's previous circumstances. And the bedroom. Since becoming an adventurer, Ben had been constantly on the move, rarely staying in the same place for more than a night or two, building temporary shelters out of whatever pieces of debris he could dig up. His most recent semi-permanent shelter, the last one that was lost to a creeper, had left a lot to be desired. By contrast, Logan's abandoned room was a fine height of luxury, with painting on the walls, lanterns instead of torches, and a soft bed dyed with a peaceful shade of blue. Ben made himself comfortable. It was an easy thing to do. One particular painting sort of creeped him out. However, it was dominated by the image of a skull. He turned away from it, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the skull was looking at him. Uncomfortable bed or not, he never been able to any sleep with the skeletal eye sockets pointed at him. He groaned and lifted himself from the bed, crossing the room. Then he unceremoniously slapped the painting off the wall. To his surprise, there was a hidden compartment behind the painting, a gap in the otherwise uniform stonework. But there weren't many riches or rare weapons stashed away. The only thing in the compartment was a book. That was unusual, to say the least. The boys had spent a lot of time together, and Ben knew very well that Logan wasn't much of a reader, and he certainly wasn't the type of person to treat a book as if it was a precious treasure. What sort of book was this, exactly? Ben cracked the cover to take a look. The pages within were filled with handwriting, Logan's handwriting. Ben quickly slammed the book shut. It was obvious that this was Logan had kept a journal. This was news to Ben. Either it was a new hobby that Logan had taken up since they parted ways, or else Logan had been very careful to keep the journal out of Ben's view. The latter possibility hinted at sincerity bordering the paranoia. But Ben had already accepted he'd never really known Logan, not truly. He reached again for the journal, hesitated, and would it be wrong to read it? Right, it would be. And just then a shadow fell over Ben. Ah, he shrieked and spinning round. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Johnny stood at the doorway with a blank expression on his face. Clearly the young zombie wasn't judging Ben for being a snoop. The guilt of Ben felt was coming entirely from within himself. This is me being a good role model, Ben said, and he replaced the creepy painting, leaving the book where he found it. Just remember this when you're being tempted to read your sister's journal. They're private. Johnny emitted a rasping breath. The boy hadn't seemed listed all day, wandering from room to room as if looking for something. Ben wondered, how did Johnny remember? Did he realize the last place he and Ben had seen Bobby? Did he expect to find her there? Come on, said Ben. Come with me. I want to show you something. He led Johnny to the center of the fortress, now empty chamber where Logan had kept countless zombies penned up. Ben looked up at the balcony in which Logan had kept an eye on the horde. This could almost imagine his old friend looking down at him in disapproval, eager for entertainment of watching Ben battle, and succumb to a crushing wave of the undead. Ben shook it off, bringing his eyes back to the ground level. He was standing on the very spot Bobby had stood when she went racing down the tunnel to safety. But where she had gone from there were several tunnels leading from the central chamber. They all had been blocked off. Ben recognized the tunnel she and Johnny had traveled through, but Logan and Bobby might have taken any other tunnels. There was no way to know for certain which direction to take, and choosing poorly would mean Bobby would be lost then forever. Ben hoped to see his friend again, and he certainly hoped to return his zombified brother to her care. Raising Zombie was a lot of work. She'll come back, said Ben. One day she'll bust through one of these walls and tell us about her adventures, and I'll bet she'll have a cure for you too, he said, patting Johnny's head. But in the meantime, you and I are going to stay here, where it's safe, where the beds are soft, and where we have all the food we can eat. Johnny growled and sounded like a disagreement. I'm sorry, but that's final, said Ben. What do you have to suggest? That we picked a tunnel at random? We got hopelessly lost? I don't know about Logan was planning, but we didn't have any way to find out. Johnny nodded as Bo blinked. His beady little eyes seemed to gaze into Ben's soul and call him rude names. Ben realized his mistake. He did not have one way to learn more about Logan's plans. Oh man, he said, remembering the eerie skull painting and what it hid. I'm totally have to go and read Logan's journal, aren't I? He had a feeling it would have been nice things to say about him. Chapter 10. Bobby gripped her sword. The pillager was drawing near and the drawing back with the string of her crossbow. At this range, their next arrow would miss. All in a rush, Ben's combat lessons came back to Bobby. Then, armed with a sword and fighting ranged foe, the trick was so close to distance, she would have to rush forward and quickly close the grab. It was her only hope of winning this fight. She looked a single step forward. Suddenly, an explosion rang out. An explosion and unhinged laughter. Both came from the direction of the pillager outpost. Bobby's foe turned toward the center of the chaos, seemingly forgetting all about Bobby. They ran for the outpost, and keeping their distance, Bobby followed. In a short time, Bobby had last seen it. The outpost had descended into chaos. A smoldering hole had been blasted through the stony base of the tower. Bobby's suspended TNT had been sent off, and judging by the arrows littered around, the several pillagers had been caught in the blast. But TNT didn't blow up on its own, and Bobby quickly discovered the culprit. Logan was there. Wading into the chaos, his diamond sword raised high and his shield held out before him. Two pillagers rushed to meet him. Their crossbows raised, but they never had a chance to fire a single shot. Logan careened between them in a glittering blue blur of violence. He hacked and slashed, he darted and jumped, and each time it took Bobby to gas, he fell both of his opponents. He made it look effortless. Another Ben had been right. Logan had skills. But Bobby was less surprised to see Logan's skills did not include the talent of taking care of others. Other Ben was there, and it was hand-me-down armor and a sad stone sword, running in a hapless zigzag pattern to avoid the arrows raining down above. Logan didn't even seem to notice. Instead of doubling back to help his squire, he forged ahead, taking the first of many staircases up the tower. The pillager that had previously come after Bobby now had his sights on other Ben. As Bobby watched, he raised a crossbow, preparing to fire on its unsuspecting victim. But two could play at that game. Bobby charged into action, catching the pillager off guard. He slashed her with his sword, putting all his strength behind the swing. It was enough to defeat the pillager, though. It's certainly not the mob's attention. The pillager whirled on Bobby, and Bobby reeled back in surprise, stumbled over on her own 2 feet. The pillager fired off a shot at her crossbow. As Bobby tumbled backward, the arrow sailed aimlessly overhead. Ha, she said. I meant to do that. Bobby took the advantage of her low position and crossbow's reload time and slashed out twice with her sword, cutting her foe right across their ankles. Crouching low on the ground, she hurried to get behind the villager, who had fired a series of arrows in the dirt and spun in a circle, trying to get a beat on Bobby. She stabbed him in the foot, and then the pillager finally fell. They had left no trace except for a fallen crossbow. It was a dignified victory, but it was a victory. Bobby would take it, and she took the crossbow too. She looked back at the outpost. The assault was in full swing now, and Logan had fought his way halfway up the tower. Other Ben was trailing on the floor behind him. At the moment, he was in a standoff with another pillager, and was going to tell if the young squire the pillager was hopping lightly on his feet, staying just beyond the reach of Other Ben's sword and firing arrows into the boy every time he took another futile swing. How much more could Other Ben take? Would Logan notice in time and come to the boy's aid? Bobby couldn't wait around to find out. He aimed her newly acquired crossbow and fired an arrow at Other Ben's adversary. It struck the pillager right in the back, knocking the bob forward into the range of Other Ben's sword. As Other Ben finally connected, slashing the pillager into oblivion, he looked up. Even at a distance, he saw Bobby immediately. Their eyes locked, and for a moment she worried that she would call out to Logan. Bobby knew now that he had no hope of taking Logan in a fight, but Other Ben didn't call out. She held Bobby's eyes for a moment, then she nodded, somberly, in thanks. Then he turned to follow Logan into the final battle with the remaining pillagers. It was then he thought it occurred to Bobby. He said she had hit that pillager with an arrow from a distance. What was keeping her from doing the same to Logan? If she timed it right, she could knock him clear off the tower. She held up a crossbow and scanned the structure for Logan. This was using a shield to deflect the pillager's attack, who she be so occupied for at least a little while longer, long enough for Bobby to line up her shot and let an arrow fly. And why wouldn't she do it? With Logan out of the picture, the zombies could stay put right there they were, penned up in an underground tunnel, until Bobby could track down enough golden apples to cure every last one of them. She would no longer have to worry about what Logan had in store for them. She would find Ben and Johnny, and together they would fix everything. All it would take is a sneak attack of the vengeful, selfish, cold-hearted boy who had set this whole nightmare into motion. One well-placed arrow, and everything would go back to normal. But she couldn't do it. It was too callous, too cruel. Fighting in self-defense was one thing, but she'd never been able to look at Johnny in the eye if she hurt someone else and make her life a little easier. She stashed the crossbow in her inventory. The fight for her was over. She noticed that she was standing beneath an apple tree. She realized that she was hungry. She took a piece of fruit, and just as she was about to bite into it, a nearby flash of color caught her eye. There were cages near the base of the tower, prisons, Bobby suspected. They were all empty except one, which held a small blue creature, so small that Bobby had almost looked right past it. She kept closer for a better look. The creature was unlike anything she'd seen before. It was busy blue wings and big white eyes. It was cute, something between an insect and a ghost. It reminded her a little bit of the Vex I'd seen in the Woodland Mansion, but this creature was smaller and much less frightening. It also apparently couldn't travel through walls like a Vex could. The creature pushed against the bars of its cage, to no avail. Bobby decided to let it out. Whatever it was, it didn't deserve to be locked up, and it certainly didn't deserve to end up in Logan's clutches. Bobby crept forward, hoping that the small final pillager for its loot, who would keep other Ben and Logan occupied just for a little bit longer. She crouched as she approached the cage, and as soon as she went ready, she smashed it open with her pickaxe. The creature made no immediate move to flee. It turned its big white eyes on Bobby and cooed. "Are you hungry?" Bobby whispered. She realized that she was still holding freshly picked apple off her hand. She held it to the mop. "Here, take it." The creature accepted the apple graciously. It giggled, making almost a tinkling sound, and then flew off. Bobby was a little jealous. There was a part of her that would sincerely like to fly away from this place, away from Logan and the pillagers and subterranean zombie hordes lurking just out of sight and never look back. But she would still have the job to do. People were depending on her, and so she found a new hiding spot, close enough to keep an eye on Logan. She was in perfect view of the victory over the final pillager. The outcome of the battle was clear, and this outpost belonged to Logan. Chapter 11. Ben was alone, and he was afraid. By the light of day, the thought of a solo adventure, just him against the elements, had been so exciting. Now, by the cold light of the moon, Ben realized his mistake. He didn't know the first thing about adventuring. It had taken him all morning to gather enough wood to begin crafting basic tools, carving stone with a wooden pickaxe, and had been painfully slow. And he hadn't found nearly enough coal to make as many torches as he wanted. The sun was going down so quickly. Now Ben was hiding his first ever shelter, which was actually more of a hole than a shelter. Just a narrow space he'd cut out of a hill. He had managed to craft a simple wooden door, and he was proud of that. But a bed had been too complicated, so as much as he would like to have curled up and slept out through the night, he had no choice but to stand where a sad stone hallway, waiting for a night to pass. Ben shuddered. He heard the telltale groan of a zombie coming outside of the little shelter. The sound was strangely familiar to Ben. Something gnawed in his mind. Where was he? When was he? This was all a dream, wasn't it? Not just a dream, he realized, a memory, an important one. Ben remembered very clearly what happened next. Anxious and independent, Ben had decided to dig. He wanted more coal and more iron for weapons. Maybe even redstone, although he wouldn't have known what to do with it if he found it. More than that, all he wanted to have something to do with his hands. If he just stood there all night long, staring at his torch and listening to the monsters outside, there would be very real chance that he would have a panic attack, run all the way to the nearest village, and hide in the library attic for the rest of his life. So he dug. Things went wrong almost immediately. Ben's wooden pickaxe broke through stone, and insisted revealing more stone. It revealed a dark, empty space. There was a cavern on the other side, and Ben's narrow shelter. He leaned forward to get a better look at it, and then he got a face full of bat. Ben panicked, and the bat panicked too. They both screamed, and the bat was higher pitched, but only by a little. As it flapped around a small, enclosed space, Ben tried to slap it out of the air, but it was too fast. It was flying too frantic. As his wings slapped across his vision, he leaped backward and pushing through the door out of the night. Once outside, he quickly ran afoul of the Enderman. The creature shrieked, lashing out at Ben his immutably long arms. Ben was armed with only half-broken wooden pickaxe, and he wasn't able to land a single strike with it. Every time he swung at the mom and teleported away, reappearing at Ben's back and renewed his attack. Ben fell to his knees. He closed his eyes, waiting for the Enderman to deliver the killing blow. But the Bob never got the chance. There was a sound of the iron sword swinging in his wind. A triumphant laughter. Ben opened his eyes the first time to see the mob fall over, defeated. A boy bent over to pick up the inky pearl he left behind. Hello, said Ben. The boy looked at him, and then he flashed a crooked smile. Hey, you don't look like the Enderman, did you? They hate that. The extended hand. I'm Logan. Ben smiled. For the first time since the moon had risen, he felt safe. Thunder echoed through the bedchamber, and Ben jolted awake. The lanterns were still lit. He had dozed off while reading Logan's journal, although in truth it was more a burned book than a journal. Ben turned to read Logan's account for the first meeting. The night had been left with such an impression on Ben that it shaped a career as an adventurer. Logan's entry read, "Saved some idiot's butt today. Now he's following him around like a tame wolf." Yep, thought Ben. It hurt as much as to read it the second time as it did the first time. As guilty as Ben felt for violating some privacy this way, he had at least thought he might gain some true insight into who Logan was as a person. Where had he grown up? Had he always wanted to be an adventurer? Had he actually ever been enjoyed Ben's company, even a little? But Logan hadn't written much. He had poured his heart out in the flowery paragraphs. As Ben had imagined, instead he jotted down insults, kept lists, drawn diagrams, and made little doodles. The lists were mostly things that Logan's disliked. 5 worst biomes ever. Most useless enchantments. Top 5 annoying mobs. Ben was horrified to find axolotls on the top of that list. Seriously, who hated axolotls? Meanwhile, llamas were pretty objectively the worst animal. That's been left off of the list entirely. There was one page titled, "Number of times Ben messed something up." The tower was way too high. Ben assumed it must have been about other Ben. It must be. Thunder rumbled just outside the window, and Ben doubted he would get back to sleep anytime soon. He kept flipping through the pages. There were diagrams for zombie traps, like the one Ben and Bobby had fallen into the first time they approached the fortress, or the iron farm Logan had built to force villagers to produce endless supplies of iron ingots. There had even been a diagram for harnessing lightning to transform cute little pigs into zombified piglins. Ben shuddered at the illustration of 2-legged, dead-eyed pig beasts and hoped that a particular diagram was pure fantasy. Who would want to create an undead pig monster? Ben had a history with zombified piglins. It wasn't good history. Interestingly, near the back of the book, there was a to-do list written in Logan's sloppy handwriting. Ben sat up with the red and leaned in close to read. Recruit grunts for labor, X. Dig tunnels, X. Amass zombie army, X. Cross the sea and take over an outpost, blank. Outfit the army, blank. Overthrow the overlords, blank. Pulverize pig-step Peggy, blank. Ben's jaw dropped open. He didn't know of any Peggies, but he heard a lot of stories of the overworld overlords. Every adventurer knew the overlords, and every adventurer, Ben included, dreamed of joining the ranks someday. They were the best of the best, the most fearsome fighters, the most meticulous miners, and the craftiest crafters. And now they were in Logan's crosshairs, and with many an army of the undead at his command, Logan just might succeed in destroying them. Ben couldn't let that happen. He had to warn the overlords. Ben looked at the page again and realized Logan had written coordinates beside them to-do list. It had to be where the overlords had built their famous headquarters. It was supposed to be the size of a village. Lightning flashed outside and thunderclaps shook the fortress. Ben shuddered, remembering Logan's illustration of Big Creature. And then Ben remembered something else as he'd been. He stuck his head out the window at the view of the courtyard below. There was a pig pen, and what Ben had thought was a strange use of metal in the construction of his fence was something else entirely. It was a lightning rod, several of them in fact. Oh no, thought Ben. Was Logan trying to create one of those creatures from the courtyard? Ben bolted his room. He passed Johnny, who was wandering in the hallway idly, and turned to watch Ben as he passed. "Minor emergency," Ben called over his shoulder. "You're not ready for the monster sibling, right?" I know I'm not ready." He hurried downstairs and flung open the inner door to the courtyard. The rain was coming down, and lightning flashed frequently in the clouds above. He had to act quickly. Logan set multiple lightning rods all around the perimeter of the pig pen. Ben would have to grab all of them. To be safe, he picked up the first one. The pig looked up at him and oinked, as if it thought he was up to. "I'm doing this for your own good," Ben said. "Well, yours and mine." Ben reached for the curtain of rain, intended to grab a second lightning rod, and he almost had it. Then a bolt of lightning seared the air in front of him. It looked like the world itself was splitting open. Ben was blown off his feet. He didn't even realize what happened until he noticed his hands were in the mud. His vision was white, and when he blinked, the brightness faded, giving away the indistinct shadowy forms. He blinked harder and saw one of the shadows coalesce with the looming figure. He reached out a hand and ate him. "Logan?" Ben said. Or Bobby, is that you?" Then the figure took a lumbering step forward, and Ben knew it was not a friend. It stood on 2 legs. It was decidedly inhuman. It was a prominent snout, pink skin, and floppy ears of a pig, but its flesh was rotting away as sickly green streaks, and there its flesh had fallen off completely. White bones showed through. Fully half of its face was a fleshless skull, and several sharp ribs poked through the broken skin of the chest. It was a zombified piglin. Ben had seen one in ages, and it was very bit unnerving as he remembered, far more gruesome than the average zombie. Ben shrieked in horror. He tried to regain his footing, but his legs wouldn't respond. He couldn't do anything but scrabble backwards, dragging himself across the muddy ground, and his arms, while he shrieked himself raw. The zombie pig person was armed with a gleaming sword, took another shambling step forward, fixing Ben with its eerie eye. One white and wet, one with an empty black socket in the bone-white skull. Ben froze beneath its uncanny gaze, but the creature did not attack. It snorted, tilted its head as if confused by Ben's terrified noises, then shuffled off, entering the fortress to the door Ben had left open. "Rawr," said the voice from behind Ben, and he shrieked once more, even to realize that Johnny was there. ranting in the rain, giving him the most confused look the pig beast had given him. "We're leaving," said Ben. "We're leaving right now. Come on." He grabbed the lead and started running in a random direction. There was no wrong direction, he decided, so long as he didn't stay here. Johnny, whether pleased or development or just naturally agreeable, came along without complaint. That was something. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, very weird and cool at the same time, I guess, to pull in some some cool guys called the Overlords. Weird move, I think, personally. Anyways, besides from that, today we read pages 40 to 58, chapters 9 to 11. And as such, white screen of death. As such, we get to, go over here and put my nice little check mark, which for some reason has an upper space. Next time we are reading pages 59 to 81. Wrong button. 59 to 80, pages 59 to 81. And for the second movement of the series, we get to go to chapters 12 to 16 next time we read. If that would like to move. And, it says 12 to 1. 12 to 16. So, honestly, it's not going to be that bad. In total in this book, there are 36 chapters. And considering we are on episode 3, next time episode 4, we'll get there pretty soon. But, yeah. With that, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. People like me, fish, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.